Hey everyone, you're listening to Fantasy Uptick. I'm Jeremiah Blue, and today we're going to be talking about fantasy baseball because baseball is back. And today I'm going to be breaking down the top 10 things that you're going to have to know going into this season that's a little bit different. It's going to be a 60-game season, so it's going to be a lot more faster paced. There's a couple of changes that they've made within the agreement. So I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know to get you ready for your fantasy drafts and your fantasy season this year. Let's get to it. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm basically going to tell you big picture, the things that have changed, or my opinions that have changed, and how you should approach your draft. And then I'm going to go through the 10 things that are kind of big to consider and what is basically my reasoning for my changes in mindset, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to elevate both elite starting pitchers. So when I say elite, I'm talking about maybe around the top 30, maybe 20 something. There's going to be a window there where I kind of have a cutoff of where pitchers go from elite to basically just run-of-the-mill, waiver wire fodder, kind of rest of the pack, right? And then there's going to be a uptick in value when it comes to closers. I just don't think that there's going to be, I think they're going to have a longer leash as far as their role on the team, not necessarily role in a game-per-game basis, but role on the team. And then I think that batters, being that there's going to be basically 15 extra batters being added to the players pool with the addition of the DH and all the National Leagues teams. There's 15 National League teams, so that means 15 DHs, right? I think that's going to lower the value of some of those bats too. So again, I think that the batting field is going to be a little deeper. I think that the elite pitching is going to be something where you're going to want to lean towards to get early. Now, my first 5 picks in my rankings are all bats, but right after that point, I moved up a lot of the elite pitching a little bit further, a little higher on my board based off of the shortened season, and then I'm really fading a lot. Basically, again, right around that 30 range, the pitchers at that point, and I'm raising up the closers significantly due to I just don't think that there's going to be a lot of experimenting at the closer spot with such a short season and every game mattering so much. Okay, so let's get into it. First thing I want to say is if you're in a league, so commissioner, or if you just have the ear of the commissioner, consider going roto, because if the season ends just halfway down the year because of COVID, I think that's going to be something that you would want to be like, hey, everybody in the league knows if it's 10 games or it's 60 games, the winner of the roto scoring, you're playing everybody's in the same boat at the end of the year as the champion, versus the head-to-head. You're playing different people, and it could just be really messy on who ends up winning, whereas in roto, everybody's playing the same person. Everybody knows the rules before the draft starts, and it's just basically whoever's at the winner at the time the season ends is the champ. Now, I'm hoping that we get the whole year, and I'm kind of banking on that, but just it'd be easier this year for you as commissioner if you just switched it to roto for 1 year, right? We're going to have a DH, which I talked about in the intro, which that's going to help a lot of teams in the National League. And there's going to be a lot of guys that would probably go up in value, like Austin Riley, Kyle Schwarber come to mind, because there's a lot of players in that Chicago Cubs area where like Ian Happ might get more playing time, and now Kyle Schwarber can kind of move out of left and just play DH. Austin Riley was kind of behind people, and he had such a good rookie breakout year. He might actually be playing the DH this year. So again, players like that are going to be out there. Another reason why I'm fading a lot of the bats. And then closers, as we talked about, they're going to have a longer leash. I just don't think that in a shortened season that managers are going to want to really experiment with the closer role. Pitchers, you won't have to worry about pitch count. So there's a lot of guys that, Tyler Glass now, that people are like, they've had a innings limit. Well, the innings limit doesn't even matter anymore because everybody's going to have an innings limit. There's only 60 games. It's going to be full sprint. So those guys with a lot of talent that maybe have innings limits attached to them historically are going to kind of take a step back in value, and vice versa. Guys that usually are those innings eaters where they end up with like Madison Bumgarner, where he's got a bunch of innings but doesn't necessarily put up those elite numbers, or at least not in his older days, might lose some value there, because now the fact that he can just continuously being an innings eater is not as valuable anymore, right? Or valuable anymore. All right, number 5. So number 1, again, consider going roto. Number 2, understand what the DH does to your league. Closers will have a longer leash in their role. Again, they're going to get pulled just as fast as anybody else because the rosters have expanded, which is my number 5 thing. And then pitchers won't have pitch counts to worry about, right? Expanded rosters, this is a big reason why I think that elite pitchers need to be owned, because I think that managers are going to be more willing to let established elite pitchers, their aces, work through some issues, whereas the middle of the rotation, I think with the rosters expanding, means they're going to have more relievers on the team, and I think that's going to end up with players being pulled a little bit more frequently, and you're going to get a lot of those middle relievers getting a lot of wins this year. So maybe some of those pitchers don't get as many wins as they usually do. And I think towards the end of the year, being that everybody's going to be in a playoff race, like around game 50, it's like already going to be in playoff mode. So you're going to see pitchers being utilized the same way they are in the playoffs, where they are going out on shorter rotations, 3 and 4 game rotations as opposed to 5, because they're behind and they're trying to get into the playoffs. So I think, again, that's all the reasons why I would say go elite pitchers, and I think that they get an uptick in value, whereas some of the middle of the road pitchers kind of drop off for me a little bit. Now, again, if they were innings limit kind of guys, like Tyler Glasnow, for example, he would move up the list for me a little bit, because I think he's got elite stuff. He just was kind of put on that innings limit. And again, the expanded rosters, going back to my number 5 thing, that's going to add more relievers on the team, but it's also going to allow some of those prospects that might not have been able to make the team. It's going to be really interesting how that works out. Like a guy like Mackenzie Gore, like I'm a huge Mackenzie Gore guy. Like I'm excited about him coming to the big leagues, but I don't know if they're going to basically bring him up now because of the expanded rosters, and you don't really want to lose all that development on players such as that. So, but you also don't want to start that clock for the arbitration purposes. So we'll see how that kind of works out, but those are things to keep an eye on, right? And then number 6, IL spots. So if you're the commish, again, I think you need to add injury list spots due to the fact that people are going to get COVID. There's going to be baseball players that get COVID during the season, and I don't know if it's going to be more frequent that people are hurt or rosters are going to be crazy. So maybe even expanding roster spots might be good, but those IL spots are going to be huge, especially if you're in keeper and dynasty leagues, so the players aren't having to drop their studs because they just need starters for that week. So I think IL spots should be almost limitless, but just take that into account when you're going into your leagues. And then position flexibility, kind of going back to IR spots. So this is number 7. Kind of going back to IL spots is players are going to get hurt a lot. So if you have a week where a bunch of guys go down to COVID, it would be nice to have position flexibility in your roster so that you guys so people that have multiple positions, you can kind of move up your roster and then pick what on free agency is. Like maybe there's more outfielders on free agency, but you lost a second baseman, but you have an outfielder who plays second baseman. So now you can move that player to second base, and now you pick up that outfielder out there. Maybe there wasn't second basemen out in free agency. That's just basically kind of my thinking there, is the more guys I have position flexibility gives me more flexibility in waivers. And this particular season, it sounds like we're going to get about 10 weeks. So each week in waivers is going to be absolutely huge, right? And then so number 8 for me is going to be, don't be afraid to act fast, because again, such a short season. Chase those. I mean, if guys are having a slump, you cannot wait it out like you would in a normal season. You got to drop those guys. You got to move on. Go find a hot bat. I mean, it sounds like I'm suggesting to be chasing stats, but really, you really can't sit through a slow month with players in this type of format, because it's going to be a dead sprint. And then number 9 for me is aces might be used more down the stretch. I'm sorry, I actually got into that earlier, but as I said earlier, that was my number 9 thing, is aces going to be used more down the stretch, similar to a playoff type environment. And then number 10 is there probably won't be a trade deadline in the MLB. So that's something to consider, because a lot of those guys that you're kind of waiting for them to start selling out, like guys that are on the 1-year contracts, and then that opens up a spot for somebody else. So there's not going to be any trade deadlines in this particular season. And that's what I think. And I put that at the very end because I'm just assuming there's not going to be a trade deadline. And I think that I've read a couple of things, but those were also assumptions too. We haven't got all the rules or what's going on with MLB, but that is also something that you as the commissioner need to think about in your own leagues, because it's going to be roughly a 9.5 to 10 week schedule when you're going to put your own trade deadlines in there. And then the last thing I want to say is enjoy it. I mean, we got baseball back. I know it's not what everybody's used to, but this might be the most exciting season that we've ever seen in baseball, because it's going to be 60 games. And from start to finish, every game's going to matter. I mean, if you're a baseball fan, it's going to be hard to miss a game because it's going to have that football, basketball. I mean, it's even shorter season than basketball. So it's going to have that real football mentality of like, you go on a 5-game losing streak and you really put yourself in a hole. So I think this is going to be a really, really fun season. Again, it's not what we wanted. It wasn't fun getting to this point with all the stuff that went on with the owners and the MLBPA, but look at it from a joyful standpoint that we're actually going to get baseball. It's going to be in July. Get ready for your drafts. Follow us if you like what I'm saying, because we're going to be talking about fantasy baseball players. We're going to be doing rankings. We're going to be doing mock drafts to kind of help you get ready for your fantasy league. So once again, that's all I got for today. Like, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. Did I leave something out? What are your opinions? How do you think you're going to have to approach the draft this time? I know I was talking elite pitchers. I've heard a lot of people talk about leaning towards bats. If that's what your theory is, let me know why in the comments. Till next time, see ya!